Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning the first Noel. So this piece is going to be perfect for the beginner player because it serves as a great introduction to playing chord melody. Now, as the name implies, chord melody combines the melody, what we usually hear the singer sing, plus the chords together. So the chord you can think of as the harmony. And when you do that, you are basically a one-man or one-woman band. So kind of a really, really cool concept, and it's great for breaking away from just strumming and singing and getting into fingerstyle playing. Now this lesson is really special too because it's the first one to feature Matt Dahlberg as a teacher for rockclass101.com. Now, you may be familiar with Matt because he has been featured in quite a lot of cool things. You may have seen him over at Ukulele Underground, teaching lessons, teaching courses, or you may have found him on his own. And I'm going to go ahead and link his channel right here. So if you want to check out more of what he does, he's got a lot of really cool ukulele lessons. Go ahead and check that out. I'll put the link in the description box below as well. So let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So Matt's going to come in, he's going to teach you guys how to play the entire song. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at rockclass101.com. So you can click this link or go to the site and do a search for the first Noel. Now on that page will also be the on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset in learning this song that much easier. All right guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this tune, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Hi, my name's Matt Dahlberg, and today we're going to be learning a solo chord melody arrangement of the first Noel. Let's go ahead and dive right in. To start, we're going to play what's called a pickup bar, and a pickup bar is a bar that doesn't have all of the beats in a normal measure. You'll see we've got 2 eighth notes here, which are going to make up 1 beat, despite a normal measure containing 3. So we essentially just count this as the end of the measure as we go in. To start here, what we'll play is we'll play our open E string, and then we'll play 2 on the C string, and I like to use my middle finger here. Now as far as the playing of the strings, I like to use my thumb throughout this whole arrangement. So I'll be strumming through and picking individual strings all with my thumb. So the pickup bar is just open and then 2. Now as we go right into melody A, what we're going to have here is an open C followed by a C chord. So we go ahead and remove our middle finger here off the 2nd fret of the C string. We're going to add our ring finger onto the 3rd fret of the A string. So we'll play the open C, and then we're going to strum through all 4 strings with our thumb here. Then we're going to play 0 on the E, then add our index finger here to 1 on the E string. So that measure starts off with the open C for beat 1. Beat 2 will be a C chord all the way through. And then beat 3 and will be 0 on the E and 1 on the E. Now this song is in 3/4 time, at 3/4 time, which means there are going to be 3 beats per measure. Oftentimes we're used to songs in 4, so this creates a little bit different of a feel. We can also call this a waltz. So one more time with the first measure. Essentially we have 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now as we go into the next bar, you'll notice that we just had this index finger here on 1 of the E string. The very next thing we're going to do is play a G chord, but it's not our normal G chord. And the reason is we're playing a chord melody. And in a chord melody, we oftentimes have to sacrifice something about the chord to feature the melody note. And this is a great example of it. So we're going to take our middle finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string, take our ring finger, place it on the 3rd fret of the E string, and we're going to strum just those 3 strings stopping at the A string. So we're going to go just those 3. I like to take my thumb and as I strum through, have it touch the A string and actually sit and rest on it as I come through so that I have a sense of where I am with that finger. So we play this G chord and we hold it for 2 beats. So 1 and 2 and. And then on beat 3, we're going to take this index finger, place it on the first fret of the E string, and strip away the ring finger off the third fret of the E. We're going to strum through now all 4 chords. So this is kind of a G7 chord. It's just, again, being sacrificed because the melody note here is this A note. So we have to fret it just this way. Again, with the middle finger here on 2 of the C, index finger here on 1 of the E. Then we're going to take our ring finger and add it to 2 on the A string, just as we normally would play a G7. So that bar is something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now if we were to combine bars 1 and bar 2, and let's go ahead and throw that pickup bar in there too, it would sound something like this. We would have Now at this point we go to a C chord. All that we're going to do is take this ring finger here on our fretting hand, slide it up 1 fret to 3 on the A, and we take away our index and middle fingers at this point. We strum through this whole chord. It's going to be beat 1. For beat 2, we just take our ring finger off and place our middle finger on 2 of the A string, play that by itself. And then for beat 3 of this measure, we're going to play an F chord, but not our full F. We're going to make it a little bit easier by just taking the index finger, playing it here on the first fret of the E string, and then strumming our C, E, and A strings all together. So that measure, pretty straightforward. Go through the C chord with our ring finger. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So each one of our fingers on our fretting hand gets to get involved with this. One little tip is when we're going from that C to then the 2 on the A, instead of taking the finger off and then reapplying the finger, which can cause the melody note to stop ringing, instead, how about we take our middle finger and we place it on before we need to take off the ring finger. This can maximize the sustain of the melody note as we're playing through the C chord and make us all ready to go for the next chord. Pretty neat, right? Now as we go to the next measure here, measure 4, we're going to be playing a C chord, but just like the G7 and the G chord prior that are sort of chopped up to fit the melody notes, this is much the same way. So we're going to take our ring finger and place it on the 3rd fret of the E string, and then we're going to play our G, C, and E strings with our thumb. Again, I'm stopping at the A string, actually coming into contact with it, but just not striking it so that I know where I am. And that'll be beats 1 and 2. And then we're going to go back to that F chord with just the index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. Strum through the C, E, and A strings, foregoing the G. And for the last note there, we're going to add 2 on the A string with our middle finger. So that whole measure 4 should be something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And if we rewind a little bit and do measure 3 along with it, it would sound something like this. Now as we go into measure 5, we're going to go back to our normal everyday C chord. So ring finger, come onto the 3rd fret of the A string, strip away the other 2 fingers. And just like I was talking before about melody notes and putting fingers on earlier, we can actually leave the 1 and the 2 from that previous measure and then place the 3 on the A and then take the fingers off to get that sound, which I really like and think is the best way to go about this because it helps you get that maximum sustain. So at measure 5 here we played that C chord, and then we're going to play 2 on the A string with our middle finger. Again, we can add it before we need to play it. And then this is a little bit tricky. We're going to be playing a type of a G7 chord, but it's not a full G7 because the melody note is going to be that open A. And we're going to jump up with our middle finger to the 2nd fret of the C string, place our index finger to the 1st fret of the E string. So 2 on the C with the middle, 1 on the E with the index. We're going to strum through all 4 strings. So this measure, very straightforward. We play the C chord, then the 2 on the A, then this G7, Now as we go into the next measure, measure 6, we go back to that chopped up C chord that we played before. Simply take your ring finger, add it to the 3rd fret of the E string, strip away the other 2 fingers, play the G, C, and E strings all together. Then we're going to play the open A. So remember all those times I told you to strum through and then have the finger stop on the A string? Well, this time we're going to use that stop to know exactly where we are and play that open A for that 2nd beat of that measure. And then for the last beat of measure 6, we're going to play an everyday G7. So middle finger here on 2 of the C, index finger here on 1 of the E, ring finger here on 2 of the A. Strum through all 4 strings. So that measure is something like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And if we combine measure 5 and measure 6 together, it should sound something like this. Now going into measure 7, we play the C chord again, with our ring finger here just sliding up 1 fret from 2 on the A. And then as we move into the next part, we'll see that it's 3 on the E string. And this is a little tricky here at measure 7, because the finger that we want to use is the one that's already playing the 3 on the A. So we just have to make that movement very quick and concise. So we move that finger up to 3 on the E. Now if you're playing a high G ukulele, like I am, you can actually, instead of this 3 on the E, play an open G if you'd like to, which can make this a little bit easier. So if your G string, your top string up here, sounds the same as mine, that's an option. But if that's confusing, just stick to the 3 on the E and you'll have the success whether you're playing high G or low G. So that measure, measure 7, we've got the C chord, then we're going to move that ring finger to 3 on the E, or play the open G. And then we're going to take these 2 fingers, the index and the middle fingers, and place them as if they're going to a G7 with our middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string and our index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. We're going to strum our G, C, and E strings all together. So measure 7 is something like, and the counting there is very simple, 1 beat per, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now as we go into measure 8, which is the end of this sort of section A, we're going to play a C chord, but it's not even as difficult as a normal C, because we're just going to play all open, but we're going to stop prior to the A string. So we play 0 on the G, 0 on the E, and 0 on the G, 0 on the C, 0 on the E, all together with the thumb, and stop on that A string. So the start of measure 8 is that C chord, that chopped up C. Get that E. That'll last 2 beats. And then we're going to add our middle finger on 2 of the C, strum our G, C, and E strings again, and then play 2 on the C. And this sort of repeats it. You can hear that this right here is a lot like the pickup bar at the very beginning of the song. And the reason is at this point it repeats all the way back to the start. But before we talk about that repeat, here's what measure 8 sounds like on its own. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And now let's look at measure 7 going into measure 8, which should sound something like this. So at this point, we go back to the beginning at melody A. So let's go ahead and try playing this together, nice and slow as we go through. So we'll start at the open C, and then the C chord, then 0, and then 1, both on the E, then 2 and 3 on the C and the E, last for 2 beats, take away the ring, add the index here on 1, add the 2 on the A, C chord, add the 2 on the A, that cool little F, and then that C chord that stops here on 3 of the E, back to that cool little F chord, 2 on the A, normal everyday C, 2 on the A, that spliced G7 where we don't have the ring finger, open on the A instead. And go to that chopped up C chord again, open A, full G7, full C, 3 on the E, that chopped up G7, we're playing just the G, C, and E strings, not playing the A, and then the C chord without the A string. Then from here it'll go again. But at this point, instead of repeating again and again and again, we're going to go to the second melody section, or melody B. And there's just some slight variations with this to differentiate it from the other parts of the song. So to dive in, let's look at measure 9. It starts off much the same way as measure 1 did. In fact, it's exactly the same. So we'll play the open C, then we'll play a C chord all the way through with the 3 on the A, and then we're going to play open on the E, 1 on the E, in the exact same way that measure 1 was. So it sounds like. But right here it starts to change. And the way it changes is it goes to an E minor chord. But just like a lot of the other chords in this arrangement, we're not going to play the full version of an E minor chord. We're going to play kind of a chopped up one. We're going to just take our ring finger, place it here on the 4th fret of the C string, and take your middle finger and place it on the 3rd fret of the E string. We're going to strum our G, C, and E strings, stopping on the A. So you see how that thumb stops on the A string. I love the sound of this chord here. It creates some nice tension. I like to let it ring. It gets 2 beats, but sometimes I like to let it ring just a little bit longer. And then from here, it's going to go to a C chord. I'm just going to take this middle finger here. I'm going to set it down to 3 on the A and take off the ring finger. Play all the way through that C chord, because the next note will be the 2 on the A. So I can put it on before that middle finger comes off, so I can get that note ringing as long as I can. And then I'm going to play the 2 on the A. So the timing of this measure, so we play the E minor for 2 beats, 1 and 2 and, then we go to the C chord, 3 and, where the and is the 2 on the A. So measure 9 into measure 10 should sound something like this. Now, measure 11 is really tough. Not really. It's the F chord that we played earlier, just twice. So just take your index finger, place it here on the 1st fret of the E string, and we're going to forgo strumming the G string. So we're just going to strum our C, E, and A strings together. Hold that for 2 beats. So 1 and 2 and then for the 3rd beat, we're going to play that chord again. 3 and. So that whole measure is 1 and 2 and 3 and. Now going into the next measure, measure 12, we're going to just take our ring finger, add it to the 3rd fret of the E string, and notice how my index finger doesn't have to come off right away. It's okay to add that ring finger on and then take the index finger away. There's no reason to make it this type of motion. That just creates more opportunities for mistakes. So we've got the 3 on the E string with the ring finger here. I'm going to play the G, C, and E strings, stopping on the A for that C chord that we played earlier. And then I'm going to play a G chord. So I'm going to hold that C for 2 beats, 1 and 2, and then a G for 1 beat on beat 3. Now a really important note is you'll notice I don't move the ring finger at all, because when I'm playing the C chord I'm using the ring finger, and when I go to this G chord I'm going to keep that index and middle finger to come on while the ring finger doesn't have to move. It might pivot a little bit for the hand to make room, but it's really important to not have to take off the fingers when you don't have to, which sounds funny, but it's so true. So often when we're building a chord we try to take everything off. We'll do something like this, when really we just want to see minimal movement. So measure 12 is 1 and 2 and 3 and. If you listen to measure 11 into measure 12, it should be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Again, make sure to not move that ring finger as you're working there. It's so tempting to kind of have it twitch. Now we go into what's my favorite part of the song because there's so much movement, measure 13. I also think it's the trickiest part of the song. You're at this G chord from measure 12, so let's go and adapt it. We're going to take the index finger, move it up to the 2nd fret of the G string, take the ring finger, move it to the 3rd fret of the A string. And what's really neat here is that middle finger that was on 2 of the A from the G chord, you can actually leave in position here. Now this can make it a little bit of a stretch, so if you really need to take off that finger, it's okay. But it's preferred to leave it. And the reason is the first chord here on measure 13 is this A minor, which we're playing 2, 0, 0, 3, which is what we just built here with our index finger on 2 of the G, ring finger on 3 of the A, and the middle can stay on 2. It's not going to affect anything. We get that A minor sound, and then the very next note is 2 on the A, which if we left our middle finger there, makes it so much easier to not have to add another finger. So that middle finger really can stick through this whole part. Until we get to the very next chord, the F chord, we're going to take off the index finger, move it to 1 on the E, take off the middle finger. So it's that same cool F chord we've been playing. So we play 0, 1, 0 on the C, E, and A. So measure 13 looks like this. But what I really like to look at is measure 12 to 13, which would look something like this, right? 2, 3, and, so I made that G chord, middle finger stays on the 2 of the A, and then move to that A minor, and then it comes off. So now we go to measure 14. We're going to play our C chord that we've had, the spliced version a whole bunch, the 3 on the E string with the ring finger. Don't play the A string. Then we play the A string separately. So we have 1 and 2 and. Then we're going to switch to a G7, normal everyday G7. So middle finger here on 2 of the C, index here on 1 of the E, and ring finger here on 2 of the A. Then we're going to strum a C chord by just moving our ring finger out to 3 on the A string. And that's going to start that sort of end. So here's measure 14 again. Going into 15 with that C chord. And then we're going to play 3 on the E, which we just move the ring finger down to that 3. And then we're going to play that splice version of G7. So we just don't play the A string. We play 2 on the C, 1 on the E with our middle finger and our index finger. Strum the G, C, and E strings together. So measure 15 is. And then as we go into measure 16, we're going to play all open on the G, C, and E. And then a C chord with the ring finger back on 3 of the A. And then it's going to play open E and then 2 on the C, just like the pickup bar to start the song. So measure 15 and 16 sounds like. Which should be very familiar because it's the same as what we've played earlier. So now playing through melody B should sound something like this. Start with our C chord, the open C, open E, 1 on the E, then that E minor chord, switch to a C chord, 2 on the A, to the F, play that F a second time, back to our chopped C chord with the 3 on the E there, then we pivot to a G chord, everyday G, go to the A minor, and 2 on the A, F chord, C, the chopped up 1, open A, through the G7, and the C chord, 3 on the E, our chopped up G7, chopped up C chord with a full C, then walking back to that turnaround. Now at this point here, we actually know the whole song. It's just going to go back to melody A again. So I'm going to play through melody A nice and slow so that you can hear and follow along. Feel free to play along too if you'd like. So starting with that very last part of measure 16, the 0 and 2. Now here at measure 24, we end with the C chord, and where we normally would have some sort of end for the pickup, we have nothing because we're ending the song here. So we're playing the 0, 0, 0, 3 C chord to finish the whole thing. So there you have it. There's the first Noel. Make sure as you're practicing it that you're very efficient with your fingerings and not moving fingers till they have to move. One of the biggest mistakes that new players make when they're learning chord melodies is that they're constantly taking their fingers off and on the fretboard. So make sure you look at those little tips that I gave as you played throughout it. And also take your time with this style of song. It uses a lot of what we call rubato, which is playing with feeling. And while there are very important rhythmic markers that you should abide to make sure you're keeping good time, it's okay to let parts ring a little bit longer and play it with a little bit more emotion. I think that sounds much nicer that way, and it really brings forward that beautiful chord melody sound.
All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed learning this tune. A lot of fun, a great one for the beginner just getting into playing chord melody style. And just want to go ahead and give you a friendly reminder, if you want to get the tabs to print off and keep for your records, that was available at rockclass101.com. So you can click this link right here, or you can go to the site and do a search for the first Noel. Don't forget that on-screen tab viewer was there too, the really cool interactive tab feature where you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down. Just a great asset in making learning this song that much easier. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one. Happy holidays, and take care.